Hello, my name is Min So, a global sales rep at Tradlinx, and I manage our US freight forwarder accounts. Today I will be speaking briefly about the challenges a lot of freight forwarders are facing in today's market and provide some possible proactive solutions. Today's survival guide is broken down into 6 clear parts. Part 1, we will analyze the 2025 global shipping market to understand some of the root causes. Part 2, we will face the harsh reality for forwarders and examine the brutal everyday impact on your business. Part 3, we will uncover some secrets for surviving for forwarders and what separates them from the rest. And Part 4 and 5, we will see how our Tradlinx Ocean Visibility solution could possibly help you and go over some real life success stories. And Part 6, I'll give you some clear call to action steps that could potentially help you guys. Let's begin. To fight a monster, you must first understand it. In this first part, we'll go over some of the main reasons and we will look deep into the catastrophic mix of demand, disruption, and consequence that has led us here. Understanding why this is happening is the first step to controlling what happens next. Let's start with the initial spark that lit this fire. The word tariff can keep freight forwarders up at night, not because of the political issues surrounding tariffs, but because it affects the bottom line. Escalating trade tensions between February and May of this year created a cascading effect of aggressive front-loading from freight forwarders. Spot market demand spiked 20% between April and June. The 90-day tariff waiver agreement signed on May 12 between the US and China has also created a lot of disruption in the global supply chain. This deal temporarily slashed US tariffs from 145% to 30%. And Chinese tariffs from 125 to 10%. This resulted in a frantic rush for freight forwarders to try and get their shipment out before the deadline. This demand surge then collided with a supply chain that was already at its breaking point. As you can see from the title, the result was a total supply chain collapse. First, European ports were paralyzed, major hubs were gridlocked, Antwerp's yard utilization exceeded 96%, and vessel wait times in Bremerhaven extended 5 to 6 days. So these types of delays can really affect the bottom line for freight forwarders because you're waiting and you're not sure when your shipment will arrive and go through. So having a solution that can tell you exactly when it's going to arrive and how many days that it will be delayed is very, very useful information going forward to be proactive rather than reactive. The combined impact was staggering. As of March 2025, 8.4% of the entire global container fleet was delayed due to port congestion alone. And this can lead to a lot of penalties, as I'm sure you guys know. When everything was at its limit, an event occurred that delivered the final blow: US airstrike on Iran. Any type of war, any type of airstrike can really affect the global supply chain, and a lot of it's uncontrollable. And the cost is usually at the freight forwarder's expense. The most immediate and quantifiable impact was the explosion in insurance costs. Just take a look at this table and you'll be able to see all the costs that were related to this strike. And the chaos was so intense that the validity of insurance quotes was slashed from 48 hours to just 24 hours. This was no longer risk management, it became a crippling expense that paralyzed business itself. The strategic crisis of the airstrike immediately led to a collapse of operational certainty. The stability that underpins the entire logistics industry simply vanished overnight. Cost: an additional $1 million in fuel costs per voyage around the new longer routes, completely eroding all profit margins. As you know, freight forwarder profit margins are slim as it is. Any type of change like this can really affect your business. An extra 7 to 13 days of transit time, causing a total loss of schedule reliability for your clients. So your clients are complaining, where's my shipment? Why hasn't it arrived? And the burden is on you guys. This wasn't just one problem, it was a simultaneous failure of the 3 pillars of your business. With the supply chain broken by this cascade of crises, a catastrophic rate explosion was the only possible outcome. So if you look at the chart here, you can see that a lot of the charges increased. Asia US West Coast 40 container rate soared past $6,100. The Shanghai Rotterdam rate jumped to over $6,600 in June of 2025. So any type of these, jumping prices will really affect your bottom line, as you know, because usually contracts are set with your clients way in advance. But with these unexpected costs, it'll really affect your bottom line. The outlook is leading analysts now forecast a further peak season rate hike of 15 to 20% in the third quarter. So far, we have looked at the macroscopic situation of the global market, but how does this crisis actually manifest on the front lines for forwarding? This is part 2, the harsh reality for forwarders. To understand the true severity of the situation, we must listen to the voices from the field. We are about to examine the triple crisis of margins, space, and trust that you are facing every single day. Let's begin. The most direct hit is the gap between the quote you give on Monday and the actual rate at the time of booking on Thursday. Rate jumps of 1,000 to 1,500 per FEU have become routine. So who is forced to absorb this cost? Looking at the actual Q1 cost from the global logistics companies, we can clearly see the damage manifesting as real financial losses. If you look here, you can see some of the losses from Martin Transports, plunged 52%, Heartland Express recorded 13.9 million net loss as cost exceeded revenue, and Tianxi International Logistics also lost a healthy amount of revenue as well. The core reason this happens is the pressure from large shippers with long-term contracts to stick to the agreement. This forces you into extreme situation. Either you bear the difference or you lose the customer. This is the reality of your vanishing margins and the crisis strangling your cash flow. But a problem even more serious than rising freight rates is the simple fact that you cannot get space on a vessel. Securing space has become less about logistics and more about winning the lottery. The sobering numbers on the screen tell this story. The booking confirmation rate has plummeted from a stable 95% down to just 60%. This is happening because large forwarders' block space agreements are locking up over 70% of all available capacity. This leaves you, the small and medium-sized forwarders, at a structural disadvantage, forced to fight for the scraps in the volatile spot market. No space, no promise has become the new standard in our industry. Yeah, so I understand from a freight forwarder's point of view, you have rising costs that are outside of your control, but then you have clients who are demanding that you stick to the original quote, right? So I understand you're in an impossible situation where you have to either honor the original quote to keep the client or absorb the loss and pay extra and lose money on that deal. So having solutions that can help you maybe offset some of these risks are very important going forward, because a lot of these uncontrollable situations such as war and supply chain damages will obviously keep happening in the future. Okay, so part 3, we will be going over some ways that you guys can go from being reactive to more proactive in this kind of very tumultuous market. So there's a difference between sinking and surviving is a fundamental shift in approach. So before, the response time was depending on the carrier, but now the new way, you can detect issues 2 days earlier. So if you have the information available, like, oh, okay, in Europe, the port is closing down, or there's lots of congestion and our shipment is expected to be 5 days late, you can talk to your supply team on the ground and then have your trucks come in a little bit later or right on time when the delay is happening, so you can try to reduce penalties and costs. Because if you don't have any idea when the shipment will arrive, you'll have to incur more penalties on top of the penalties that are already there. So also from a client communication standpoint, rather than being reactive and waiting for the carrier to give you information, if you have a certain solution that can track your shipment via satellite or any other type of information, you can give them some peace of mind. Like, you can tell them that there's a war happening in the Middle East, so your shipment is therefore delayed, but we expect it to be here in 3 days or 4 days. That will give them a little bit more peace of mind, because they know that you cannot control those macro affairs going on in the world. But just having the information available will really help you keep that client long term. This is the key tool that enables the proactive approach. Forwarders who adopt visibility solutions are at a tangible advantage compared to forwarders who are not, because just having the information available and giving that peace of mind to your shippers will really help develop that trust between you guys and them. Because like I said again, they know that you cannot control macro events, But having these follow-ups with daily reports, Excel data, and letting them know when their shipment is going to arrive is really, really important, and having that open communication with your clients. And also in terms of your team, your team's stress level in an operational efficiency approach. If you have a team of 10 and they're getting calls every day from your shippers asking where their shipment is, that's going to drive up the stress of your team. Versus if your clients can log on to a system and check their own shipments, even reducing the workload of your team by 20-30% will make them more available to do other more intense tasks rather than just receiving calls and then letting your clients know where their shipments are. So the last part, how Tradlinx could possibly help your business as a ocean visibility solution. So I don't want to oversell our solution and say that it can do everything and it beats every other solution, because it can't. There are some things that it does very well, but there are some parts that we don't offer. But let me go over the parts that I believe can be very useful to your business, and then from that point you can decide if it's something that could help you or not. Tradlinx's most powerful innovation is charging per master BL. We don't charge per container. So for example, if you are moving 1,000 containers a year, it could be on 500 master BLs or even less, 200 master BLs, because you could have multiple containers attached to one master BL. However, a lot of solutions, they charge per container. So if you're moving 1,000 containers a year, you're paying 1,000 times whatever the container amount, the unit rate is. Whereas at Tradlinx, we're charging you only by master BL. So if you have 5 containers on one master BL, it could, depending on the volume, range between $1.50 to $3 to track that one master BL, and those 5 containers are tracked on that one master BL as well. You're not having to pay 5 times more. So that over time for forwarders can create a huge buffer. Instead of having to pay for every container that you're tracking, you're only paying per master bill of lading. So over the course of a year, 2 years, 5 years, it'll save you a lot of money in terms of condensing your shipment rate. Yeah, so here you can see a direct comparison between Tradlinx and some of our competitors here. Because we're charging per bill of lading and not per container, like I told you before, you'll be able to save a lot more money over the course of time. And then also our update frequency. Another aspect that I believe Tradlinx does very well in terms of versus our competitors is our update frequency. So whereas a shipper, we receive the information from the shipping lines, but sometimes they can only update maybe once every 12 hours or once a day. But our IT team is constantly trying to pull the data from those shipping lines every 2 hours to update you guys as fast as we can. And also we cross-reference that data with our satellite data, which is updated almost every 30 minutes and gives you exact longitude and latitude coordinates of where your shipment is. So having a variety of data points can really help your business be more proactive, because you're able to see when the shipment is going to arrive in terms of a predictive ETA, and then you can have your ground team move accordingly. So like I just mentioned, we update almost every 1 to 2 hours, 12 times faster than our competitors, so you'll be able to get much more accurate and frequent updates, predictive ETA. Also, through our API, you're able to get a demergent detention cost prevention. Also, through our API, you're able to make demergent detention columns as well. So if those data points are very important for you, you can use those to estimate your demergent detention costs, but also try to not pay those as well, having those accurate data points. And also, you can simplify complex shipments using our master BL tracking and reduce the routine status updates calls by over 90% from your staff. Part 5, we'll go over some real life success stories from our clients, and then you can kind of see for yourself if it's something that you would be interested in going forward. Here, one of our companies, they were receiving up to 25 calls per day, their team, about obviously where's my cargo, right, from their clients. After Tradlinx, they were only receiving 2 calls per day. And the reason being here is we provide a variety of reports through daily reports, links, and also Excel data points, but also we can provide a tracking widget you could put on your website where your clients can receive a reference number from you, and then they can go onto your website, put in that information onto the tracking widget, and then look at their own shipment via a map view. So if it answers their questions, they're not really going to reach out to you. And over time, this reduction in calls will really help save your team a lot of energy, and they can focus on getting new clients or marketing or different aspects of the business rather than just giving shipment updates. And also here you can see some of the other data points. The monthly demurrage and detention costs went down significantly, and also the handling time for the shipments went down as well, because all our containers are attached to master BLs and you don't have to track them individually. Operational efficiency in terms of, like I just mentioned, where the team was, your freight forwarding team is less burdened with these calls, and then we estimated how that would turn out in terms of actual dollar value. So you can see here, Company A operational efficiency wasn't just a concept, it became over $100,000 in real annual savings. In terms of demurrage and detention costs here, you can see here, but also in terms of labor efficiency. The value was worth equivalent to one employee's yearly salary, and the total annual savings came out to over $100,000 in actual savings. Yep, so one of my clients, a freight forwarder out of Savannah, Georgia, they told me that they reduced their customer claims by 75%, but also boosted their sales by 40%, because their teams were freed up to focus on sales and marketing and providing really high quality client services versus just receiving claims and just trying to get through the day. So yeah, I would recommend, if you think this webinar was useful for you, and if there's any points in the webinar that was kind of ringing to you, I recommend trying a 2-week free trial period with our solution. You can track up to 10 master BLs for free, go through all the functions. You can even put the widget on your website and see how your clients like it. And then from there, we can provide a quotation depending on your shipment volume. And if you can have a one-on-one consultation with me directly as well. So going forward, there's a constant geopolitical risk, and the choice is not just about profit but survival. The reality a lot of freight forwarders are facing is a widening gap between tech-savvy competitors and guaranteed rate hikes in H2 2025. The cost is pretty high for inaction. Not doing anything will, over time, you could lose clients because they don't have the data that can really give them a peace of mind, right? Having this visibility solution will give them peace of mind, even though they know they can't control macro events. So the strategy going forward could be to become a strategic risk manager, turning volatility into your client's resilient advantage, forge lasting client trust and sustainable growth through proven supply chain resilience. Thank you so much for your time today and going through our webinar. If you reached the end, I really appreciate it. I'll put my email down in the description below, and feel free to email me any questions that you have regarding freight forwarding or our solution, and then I will respond promptly. Thank you so much for your time.